Good evening, campers, dreamers, and babysitters. And yes, we have a special treat for you here. We've recently reviewed the new film Sisu, and we had the opportunity to sit down with the director, Jamari Helander. And yes, I am writing solo on this one. Dylan was not able to join me. He is the Woody Harrelson to my Juliette Lewis, but I was forced to go it alone on this one, which was a special treat. I am a huge fan of rare exports. So, I had to squeeze in a couple rare exports questions for this one, us being the big holiday horror fans that we are on Splattercast. But yeah, this one was a lot of fun, guys, being able to sit down and pick his brain a little bit. Short and sweet interview, but I think we covered a lot of ground. Gave a lot of interesting insight into filmmaking, the film itself, and just being a creative in the space. So definitely sit back, enjoy, and without further ado, here is our interview with Jamari Helander. One of the big questions I had is obviously once that trailer dropped. I mean, it is absolutely stunning. It gets you so intrigued. It is one of those things where once you finally see Sisu, it is such a thrill ride, and I think the trailer is very evident of that. Was that something that you put together yourself in terms of being able to look at it and be like, okay, this is what I want the audience to know about this film?
Well, that was the Lionsgate version of the trailer. The Finnish version is quite different, actually. And that's because the distributor here in Finland wanted to have like a PG-13 kind of trailer. So, of course, it makes it a whole lot different than the Lionsgate version.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then going into the film itself, it does take place in 1944, so it's a bit of a period piece. Do you find that as a screenwriter something a little more therapeutic, whereas you don't have to deal with, I guess, modern hurdles in terms of like technology to build that tension?
Definitely. And I don't have that problem in my previous movies either, because somehow in my films, there's basically no cell phones that much or stuff like that. I always want to go somewhere in the middle of fucking nowhere to that you are in a position that you just can't like go to help to anyone else or call the police or like
Yes.
you have to deal with the problems with yourself. And I like that kind of films.
And that is something about Sisu that I absolutely love, because being able to see the film and then it's one of those things that has so many amazing set pieces and you go a lot of places, but it feels so isolated and contained in itself, which is really where you can build that tension. And I see you have uh, picture John Rambo behind you. It really does give me these First Blood vibes. Was that something that was a big inspiration to you going into penning the screenplay?
Well, that was the biggest influence for me to even become a filmmaker, because it basically changed my whole life when I was a kid and saw First Blood. Like how much I'd spent my time after that in a forest with a knife, just playing to be Rambo. so I like things that are happening in the wilderness and you have to deal with your problems. So I don't know. It was great to make a film with that idea myself.
And that is one of the things where it's like you look at that initial First Blood film, and when you're introduced to the John Rambo character, it's such a subtle introduction. It's nothing like how we get First Blood Part 2 or Part 3, where he's just walking. He's this vet, and he's going to go meet a friend who he's find out has passed away, and then everything ensues there. Well, we have this connection with that type of character without him even saying that much. And I think Sisu is also evident in that, where it's like we don't get a lot of dialogue initially, throughout the film with that character, but we resonate with him as in somehow. Is that something where you're creating that character and you're aware that we're not going to have a lot of dialogue here? Is that something where it's like show me, don't tell me, where we have to hit these certain points in order for an audience to resonate with that character. Because I do think, although there is minimal dialogue in this film from our protagonist, we do resonate with him of wanting him to make it out of these events.
Yeah, it was important to me not to have that much dialogue because I took it as a challenge to because it forces you to think more cinematic ways of how to tell your story, and that's something I'm gonna do more in my next films. And I really enjoy the idea of like in First Blood and in Sisu that we don't know much about this guy yet, but we are about to know like what he's capable of, and who is he basically. And that's something that like if you think like Netflix films or something, like you need to have like an action scene in the beginning now with all that audience, they would know immediately that they are watching some kind of movie. But if you think like First Blood and try to like if it would open with a scene where John Rambo is in Vietnam doing his Rambo stuff there, it would be totally different experience to be on that road after that, and when the police meets him, and you don't need that. It's more interesting without it, I think.
Absolutely. And that's, not going into spoilers or anything, but the first 10 to 15 minutes of Sisu is really something where you're just enjoying the film. It isn't something where we're being thrown in, bombs going off, anything like that. It is very a subtle entrance in us really getting engulfed in the situation, I think. And I think that's as soon as those events start spiraling out of control, we're so along for the ride at that point, because even without saying anything, you've already built this character that we resonate with.
Mm. And that's a huge thanks to the Jorma, the actor, who's like, how good is he in that role? It's like amazing.
And that was another thing I noticed. Being a huge Rare Exports fan, you noticed some usual suspects in this film. Was that something, as you were creating Sisu, you were like, I already have in mind the casting here, or did it just kind of fall into place?
When I had the idea, I knew immediately it has to be Jorma who's doing this, the main role, because I don't know, he has a face and he's capable of like showing with his body and with his face and eyes all kinds of stuff, and still be interesting, and that's a big thing to have.
And then just going into penning the screenplay initially, can you just talk a little bit about that process in terms of was it something as soon as you started, it was a very quick process because you had the idea in mind, or was it something that you kept coming back to because, once you get that idea in your brain, you kind of get stuck and you're just like, okay, I got to go back to it. I got to go back to it. Because this thing is broken into chapters, which I absolutely love as soon as the title cards come up, because it kind of breaks it up a little bit in terms of what we're going to be experiencing in that next chapter.
Well, this was a fast process of writing, and but I had the idea for a couple of years before I started writing it. I tried to write it like before, but I never got more than 5 pages of it or something, because it felt too hard to write without the dialogue, and I knew that I have to be so inventive with the solutions Atami has, like how to survive or how to kill Nazis. But I don't know. When I finally started writing it, it's something. It was so nice that everything like clicked together, and the ideas just came from somewhere.
Because I mean, the scripts, the film itself, I mean, it flows just so perfectly. Where it's like, we're introduced to the character at the very beginning, and then you just keep upping the ante in terms of until we get, to the very end. There are a lot of in-depth set pieces here going throughout the film. Was that something when it became from page to actual film and actually filming it, was that something where did any of those set pieces become a little more in depth than initially thought out on the script?
It mostly goes exactly like it's written. Of course, there are like challenges with the location, or you need to change something, and but all the main things were in the script already, because you just can't because you don't have that much of dialogue. You can't like you can't like skip the action scene in a way, because it's so big deal of the film that you have to like write it down and be almost like a novel with it, like.
Yeah. And then one last question for you. Just curious, without giving away any sort of spoilers or anything like that, I'm just curious about your writing habit. Are you on to the next thing? Is there already something out on the horizons for you, or are you still searching for that next project to be inspired by?
I have a couple of things I'm writing at the moment, and I have one I have already written, which we might start to shoot even this year. And there are some projects from Hollywood also, which are like interesting ones, but I'm not sure what's going to happen next for sure. But I'm not definitely going to take like an 8-year break like I did after Peak Game. I'm going to do something as soon as possible.
Okay, wonderful. Absolutely great. I do appreciate you taking the time to sit down. Being a huge fan of Rare Exports, and finding that one through actual video, and then seeing Sisu coming out. I did get to see a screener. I'm definitely going to theater to see this one because it looks absolutely beautiful on a television. I can't wait to see it on the big screen. And I got to say, it was so thrilling to see the Sisu poster up at my local cinema as coming soon, just because it's like, I'm so glad that we're getting a theatrical release from this, because it is phenomenal. It looks phenomenal. I can't wait to see it on the big screen. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I have to say that I also am really happy because of what's happening. And Jack Doolan, one of the actors who's living in the US, he's sending me pictures from his local cinema, like, look at this, look at this.
Absolutely
Fun.
gratifying
That's fun.
experience, and
Yeah.
it absolutely earns. I can't wait to see what you do next, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, there you have it, guys. My interview with Jamari Helander. It was great to sit down, pick his brain about Sisu, some rare exports talk, and just some filmmaking questions in general. He's been around for minutes and definitely has a lot of great filmmaking techniques and just thoughts in general. Once again, can't thank him enough being able to sit down and talk with him. And if you haven't checked out Sisu, carve out some time in your day to go to the theater to see that one. If you haven't seen our review, it's spoiler free. So stop by and check that one out. And then a lot of great content on the channel, a lot of Evil Dead coverage. We covered the original Evil Dead as well as the 2013 version. And then some Evil Dead Rise talk with Evan from Rockland Graves, as well as Dylan's Evil Dead timeline coverage, which is a great video. So definitely check that one out if you haven't already. And then we got a lot more content coming up. So if you're not already subscribed, please subscribe to the channel and check out our content. We got more coming in the coming weeks here, more interviews, more reviews, everything you need here. But until then, I'm Luke Janesco, and stay scared.